Have you ever wondered what would be the most sustained damage that you could possibly do with a character in D&D at, say, level 1, or just level 2, or level 5? Maybe you're planning on playing a one-shot that you know is just going to be a set level, and you're looking to bring a character that is just going to max out on damage for that particular level. If so, have I got a video for you. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, each week I take a deep dive into character builds, usually just one, sometimes more, like today. I like to theorycraft about them, crunch numbers, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way, typically, to play a certain character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both really fun but also really powerful to play. So if you enjoy creating characters for your role-playing games, almost as much as you enjoy playing the actual game itself, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I'm so glad you're here. So thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Right. Longtime viewers of my channel know that for almost all of my D&D builds, I pause at character levels 6, 9, 13, and 17 and do a damage report to try and talk about what combat tactics look like for us now and how much damage we could expect to do with this build at those levels. But what about the rest of the levels? What if you really want the hardest hitting, level 3 character you can possibly make? In that case, all those spreadsheets and graphs that I meticulously put together each week don't really help you all that much. Well, today I've decided to do something a little different and focus on building the hardest hitting character I can possibly come up with for each level. Ignoring the levels that came before and the levels that are going to come after, what's the best sustained damage build that I can make for a given level? And yeah, sorry about the clickbait title. Best is totally a subjective term. Some may well argue that best would be most well-rounded, but I mean, come on. Who do you think I am? Treant Monk? Best seemed both more likely to get clicks and also more concise than highest sustained damage per round character, right? So, okay, before I jump into the builds, let me lay down some ground rules. First of all, I'm assuming that we've got access to all official Wizards of the Coast D&D content only. So no blood hunters, no night domain clerics, etc. But I'm not going to consider any backgrounds that give you any kind of benefit beyond the standard skill proficiencies. So Strixhaven stuff, Dragonlance stuff, etc. Just for backgrounds anyways. Now, I know that in the new player's handbook coming out later this year, backgrounds are giving free feats, and most of the recent content that Wizards have come out with have been making backgrounds a lot stronger. But first of all, the feats available in backgrounds in the new player's handbook all tend to be somewhat on the less powerful end. The more powerful feats are going to be available at level 4, right? And also, my sense is that most tables these days still only allow those power increasing backgrounds if you're specifically playing in that world that the book is from, right? And then otherwise, they're prohibited. Feel free to try and convince me otherwise. But those are the rules I'm going to stick to for these builds today. Also, instead of giving a range of different armor classes that we're going up against, like I typically do when I do damage reports, right? I'm just going to pick one target armor class for each level and try to do the most damage possible against that AC. It seemed a lot easier than to try and account for all the possible ACs you might be fighting at that character level and give extra weight to the most likely ACs, etc., etc. Instead, I've just taken the average armor class and also actually ability score bonus, saving throw bonus, etc. for a CR equivalent monster out of the monster manual for that character level. So for level 1, we're going to look at an average CR1 monster. Level 2 characters are pitted against an average CR2 monster, etc. I appreciate that you will often be fighting enemies of a lower or higher CR than your current level, right? But I have to pick something to calculate against, and that seemed as good a measuring stick as any. Finally, I'm actually going to give you 3 builds for each level. The first is going to be a I can do this all day build, right? Steve Rogers, Captain America, one that requires absolutely 0 resources, 0 setup, 0 contingencies that need to be met. As long as you're conscious, you can do this damage every single turn for eternity.
I can do this all day.
Regardless of how many encounters you get per day or how many short rests you may or may not have, the purists out there would consider this truly sustainable. It'll give us a nice baseline to compare other builds to. For the other 2 builds, that I do at each level, I'm going to consider it sustainable if you can do this much damage for at least an entire combat encounter, though there will be resources used and sometimes there's going to be a little bit of setup required before you're kind of firing on all cylinders, right? One of these builds I'm going to call like reasonable, with little to no need to convince your DM that this should work the way that you're intending. And then we're also going to do one that's a little more out there. Like, the gloves are coming off, we might only be able to do this much damage for one encounter per day, and you might have to convince your DM that, hey, this totally works, rules as written, dude. Just go with me here. But if you can make it happen, it will beat anything else that I came up with, at least. Also, of course, since I'm going to be going over, like 15 builds here? Yeesh. I'm going to be moving a lot faster than I normally do. You might even want to slow it down from 2 times speed to like 1.5 times today. All right, any questions? Leave them in the comments. Let's jump into D&D episode number 168, the best build for each level, levels 1 through 5. Oh, and huge thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the artwork that he put together for this week's video. I love the group shot. This is the first time he's ever done like a group shot for my build. It makes perfect sense because there's actually multiple builds this time, right? But I think it's a great demonstration of stuff he might be able to do for your entire group. So if you'd be interested in following him to check out the other stuff that he's done, or even to potentially try and commission him to create some art for your character or your entire party, I will put links in the video description, as always, on how to do so. Cereal time, my favorite time is cereal time. Do you even lift, bro? Who are you and what are you doing in my kitchen? I am your cereal godmother. Okay. Anyway, yes, I engage in strenuous regular exercise. What does that have to do with cereal time? I assume you're trying to cut carbs, maybe increase protein. Yeah, but don't even think about trying to take away my cereal. Like 90% of the reason that I work out regularly is so that I can eat cereal whenever I want and not have to worry about it. Right, but here's the thing. There's a cereal out there that has only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs and 13 to 14 grams of protein per serving. So what is it, just like straight almonds? Nope. So it's just magic, then. Exactly. Magic spoon. Magic spoon. Probably tastes like dirt. That's the best part. It's delicious. It's gonna remind you of watching Saturday morning cartoons when you're a kid eating your favorite cereal. Consider me skeptical. Try it for yourself. All right. Dude. Bro. Bruh. This is seriously yummy, right? And the best part is, it comes in tons of awesome flavors. Fruity, cocoa, peanut butter, blueberry muffin, maple waffle, and tons more. That was weird. Anyways, awesome. How do I get some? Easy. Just scan the QR code that's been floating above our heads this whole time. Or go to the link in the video description or the pinned comment, and don't forget, use the code D4 at checkout to save $5 off your order. Dude. Bro. At level 1, the I can do this all day build is pretty simple. It's a fighter who goes variant human or custom lineage for the race. You're gonna see a lot of this today, sorry. A free feat is really good, and we're optimizing. You're gonna take the crossbow expert feat for the free feat so that you can make 2 hand crossbow attacks with the same weapon each round. You're gonna have a 16 dexterity, among other things, and then you're gonna wanna take the archery fighting style as a fighter to get +2 to hit with all of your attacks. With that setup and a hand crossbow, you're gonna do 11 damage per round every single round until Kingdom Come against the average CR1 armor class, which is 13. 11 DPR, Not bad for level 1, especially if you're spending no resources to do it, right? The more reasonable build that might have a little bit of resource expenditure and setup is going to be a barbarian who goes a custom lineage for the race specifically. For the free feat, you're going to take slasher or some other feat that gives us a +1 to our strength so that we can start with an 18 strength, right? It's thanks to +2 from custom lineage and +1 from the feat. As far as the weapon that we're going to be using, guess what? We're going to take the double-bladed scimitar. This weapon has a really fantastic built-in bonus action attack. So long as we're proficient with the weapon, we do 2d4 with our action and 1d4 as a bonus action, adding both our strength bonus and our rage bonus that we get as a barbarian to both attacks, right? Yeah, rage takes a bonus action to get going, and it's going to add 2 damage to all of our attacks as well as give us some damage resistance. Now, one thing that makes this not necessarily a guarantee here is that double-bladed scimitars are expensive. I'm not sure if your DM is going to let you start with one. Make a good backstory. Borrow money from your friends if you have to. If you can't get one, then you're going to want to take Polearm Master as your free feat instead and start with like a glaive or a halberd. You'll be almost as good. But assuming we can get that double-bladed scimitar, on round 1 we rage and attack, and thereafter we just make 2 attacks every round. And that's going to land us at 14 damage per round against that 13 AC, and that's pretty stellar at level 1. As for the more out there build that has bigger setup, a bigger resource cost, and even a caveat in this case, we're going to go with a rogue, but they need the Hex spell. You can get Hex by going Hex Blood for your race, but I prefer going like custom lineage or variant human so that you can get the Fey touched feat with a free feat, right? This is going to let us learn the Misty Step spell as well as, if we choose it, the Hex spell. It'll also give us a +1 to one of our mental abilities, right? Now, you can only cast both of these spells once per day with this feat, and of course, the drawback with Hex is that not only do you have to concentrate on the spell, but it takes a bonus action both to initially cast and then transfer to another target if you kill the one that's currently hexed, right? But let's say that you're using this in like a level 1 boss fight where a big bad just really needs to go down. Well, we're going to be dual wielding like short swords or scimitars here. And so on round 1, you would hex them and make an attack. And thereafter, every round, you're going to be attacking them twice per round, adding a d6 to each of those attacks. In addition, you're going to add another d6 if you get your sneak attack bonus. But you got to qualify for that, right? You either need advantage or your enemy has to be standing next to an ally. It's pretty easy to pull off, but it's not necessarily a given. Assuming all that's happening, though, you're getting 2d6 for every hit. You're adding your dexterity modifier to like your main hand attack, not your offhand, your bonus action, but then another d6 on top of that, potentially, for a total of 15 damage per round. Only slightly better than that double-bladed scimitar barbarian. But hey, maybe you needed a rogue in your party anyways, aside from just damage, right? And in that case especially, this is a great character to bring to a level 1 party. All right, moving on to level 2. The all-day build that spent 0 resources, had 0 requirements, is actually going to be the same as the more reasonable build, and it's actually the same as the barbarian that we did from level 1. The only difference now is that you get reckless attack as a barbarian too, right? If we're talking all day, we don't get to rage, so we're not going to get that extra bonus damage from rage necessarily, but reckless attack can be used whenever you want, right? And it just gives you advantage on your attacks. So you've got an 18 strength, you're using a double-bladed scimitar, and you're just making 2 attacks every turn, this time with advantage. In that scenario, against a 13 armor class, because that's still the average for a CR2 monster, you would be doing 15 damage per round. And then, yeah, the reasonably sustainable build would be the exact same character, it's just that you rage when you can, and it's going to add 2 damage to both of those attacks, giving us an 18 damage per round on average, which feels really great. Man, I wish that the double-bladed scimitar shined this brightly outside of early levels. Alas, Great Weapon Master exists, and the double-bladed scimitar doesn't qualify for that feat. Maybe when the new player's handbook comes out, though, and that +10 damage, -5 to hit from Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter go away, the double-bladed scimitar might be a little more competitive. The out there build, though, for level 2 is going to be a Moon Druid. You knew Moon Druid was going to make an appearance at level 2, right? Brown bears are fantastic, but actually, the damage from being a brown bear isn't better than the double-bladed scimitar barbarian unless you can add something like the Hex spell. So yes, this character is going to be a Druid level 2. For their race, we're going to be custom lineage or variant human again, or Hexblood, actually. Again, I prefer custom lineage or variant human so that I can get a free feat. I think I would again go Fey Touched and take Hex. But unlike the level 1 rogue using Hex, there are some nice things here that makes this build a little less out there. First of all, we have other spell slots, so we can cast Hex more than once per day, right? But second of all, for our subclass, we're going Moon Druid, right? And that means we can wild shape into a brown bear. And when we do that, we can take the multi-attack action with our action, making a bite and claw attack all just with our action, leaving our bonus action free to transfer Hex as often as we want to. And yeah, altogether, this really isn't too far out there, fairly reasonable. The big drawback is that on round 1, it's entirely dedicated to setup if we're not already in bear form. I mean, bear form's gonna last a couple hours for us, so we very well may be. But if we're not, on round 1, we're gonna Hex first, then wild shape, right? And then start making those hard-hitting attacks on round 2. I guess we need to survive in bear form long enough too, that's another caveat, but we've got a ton of extra hit points, we should be fine. All told, our DPR is going to be sitting at a hefty 19 under that scenario. Super, super solid. Okay, at level 3. The all-day build shifts. Fighter Barbarians, no longer top dog, it's actually a rogue. I know, I'm surprised too. You take 3 levels of rogue, and I mean, I don't even care what subclass you take. None of them are really going to add to our sustained damage, so feel free to grab something that increases your utility in the way that you want, or even your burst damage potential. I think Arcane Trickster might take the lead here, but Phantom would be great, Assassin if you can get Surprise. Have fun with it. As for our race, we're going custom lineage or variant human, and then the free feat here is going to be Sharpshooter. Finally, we've got Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master making an appearance. A Sharpshooter gives us 10 extra damage on our ranged weapon attacks at the cost of a -5 to hit, right? You're gonna get yourself a 16 dexterity here, grab a light crossbow since we're not proficient in heavy crossbows, and then thanks to the steady aim feature that we get at Rogue 3, you will use your bonus action to give yourself advantage. Just remember, you can't have moved yet, nor can you move for the rest of your turn if you use this, but that shouldn't be a problem since we're at range. Maybe grab yourself a mount if you can, and have the mount move you around if need be, though some DMs may think that's cheating. Anyways, sneak attack is doing 2d6 now. You're only going to be making a single attack every round, but you automatically qualify for sneak attack since you have advantage, meaning that if you hit, you're going to do 1d8 for the weapon, 2d6 for sneak attack, plus 13 damage, for a total of 16 damage versus a 14 AC. The average AC has gone up now that we're level 3. Not bad. Speaking of, I can do this all day. You know what really helps me make build videos all day? My channel members. I would really love it if you would consider joining as a channel member. There's a little button down there and it says join. And for just like a couple bucks a month, you can get some great perks, like access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of these builds, including this one, to help you recreate the build yourself a little more quickly, a little more easily. There are other perks too, and I just wanted to give a huge shout out and thank you to my channel members. You guys are so awesome. I could not do this without you. And everybody else watching, thanks for watching. Even if you don't want to be a member or don't feel like you can afford it, that's totally fine. Just watching, liking, subscribing, clicking on the notifications bell, commenting. These are all great ways to support the channel, and I just really appreciate that you're here. So thanks. The reasonable build, I'm definitely putting in air quotes here. So just like the last 2 levels, we're going Barbarian, but there are some differences. First, we would use a greatsword or a maul for our weapon instead of a double-bladed scimitar. For our free feat, we'd take Great Weapon Master, which gives us that plus 10 to damage at the cost of a -5 to hit. Then for our subclass, we'd take the Berserker. I know, but look, Berserker lets us make a free bonus action attack when we frenzied rage, meaning that we would get 2 Great Weapon Master infused heavy weapon attacks every turn with advantage and rage, and that would land us at 27 damage per round against a 14 AC. That's incredible. Of course, the huge drawback to Berserker is that you suffer a round of exhaustion when you frenzied rage, right? And that's really not sustainable past a single combat encounter per day. 1 level of exhaustion just gives you disadvantage on ability checks. We can deal with that. 2 cuts your speed in half. So maybe you could do this again on the final fight of the day, but you only reduce your exhaustion level by 1 when you take a long rest. So sure, technically it meets my requirement to be considered sustainable, but barely, right? That said, If you went Zealot Barbarian instead and kept using the double-bladed scimitar build, the bonus damage from Zealot would put us at a 23 DPR, which is almost as good as that Berserker Barbarian, right? That's why I felt okay about calling this reasonable. Now, as for the out there build, some of you might not actually consider this to be all that out there. Maybe less so than a Berserker Barbarian even, but for others, yeah, you're probably gonna have to convince your DM. We're going Moon Druid again for this one, but what makes it so good now at level 3 might not be for the same reasons, because now that we're level 3, we get second level Druid spells, and that means, you guessed it, Spike Growth. Get used to this spell, we're going to be seeing a lot of it going forward. The spell costs an action to cast, requires concentration, and covers a 40-foot area in thorns that deal 2d4 damage for every 5 feet an enemy moves through it, and no, that movement does not have to be voluntary. So now, we're still going to go custom lineage or variant human, but for our free feat, we're taking mobile. This grants us an extra 10 feet of move speed, among other things. Be sure to grab proficiency in athletics. We'd also make sure to take the Long Strider spell and try to have it active on ourselves before combat begins, as it lasts an hour and grants us an extra 10 feet of move speed, doesn't require concentration. In combat, we'd lay down Spike Growth with our action, transform into a bear with our bonus action if we needed to, and on subsequent rounds, we're running up to an enemy, grappling them, and then just dragging them along the edge of the Spike Growth. This is such great damage that we're not even attacking with our action, we're just dashing to drag them further. Just round and round, circling the briar patch. Keep in mind that when we're dragging a grappled enemy, we do so at half speed, but a brown bear with mobile and long strider active has a 60 feet move speed. So if we're dashing, that's 120 feet, right? But at half speed, because we're dragging an enemy, so 60 feet total. With our bear's +4 to strength modifier and our +2 proficiency bonus to athletics, and yes, you'd use the bear's modifier here, but our own athletics bonus, look it up, we're at a +6 to athletics. The average CR3 enemy has a +3 to theirs. Yeah, they can use athletics or acrobatics, but athletics is higher on average, meaning that we would have a 62% chance to successfully grapple. Multiply that percentage against the 60 average damage that dragging an enemy through 60 feet of thorns would cause, and we end up with 37 damage per round. So what makes this build out there? I think two things. One, I don't know that it's a given that a bear can grapple. We're told that to grapple, you need to have a free hand. Does a paw count? I mean, they call it a bear hug for a reason, right? I'm confident that most DMs would allow it, especially if we're, say, grappling them with our huge, powerful jaws and dragging them that way, right? Think the Revenant. I have a hard time believing that any DM would allow a bear to grapple 2 enemies, though. At least not if you want to drag them along, because can we really stand on our hind feet that effectively and move enemies along the outside of a Spike Growth? Probably not. The other reason why it might require some buy-in from the DM is because even though rules as written, you and your grappled enemy do not occupy the same space, according to a poll I did a couple of weeks ago, almost half of the over 8,000 respondents thought that the grappler would take some damage in this scenario. Now, to be fair, I could have worded that poll question a little better, making it clear that I was planning on staying outside of the area and just dragging the enemy like along the edge of the Spike Growth, right? So that number might be inflated. But even if it was, a significant number of people felt that you'd be taking damage dragging an enemy along the edge of Spike Growth. Or maybe that you couldn't really drag them along the edge. You'd have to sort of drag them behind you and move through the same space. I saw a lot of comments saying stuff like that. So this is one that you'd for sure want to discuss with your DM before bringing the build and the tactic to their table. By the way, if you want to see me take kind of this build concept but go all the way to level 17 with it, check out the Moon Druid here. Okay. Moving on to level 4. The all-day build is just that same rogue build from last level, but this time adding a level of fighter so that we can pick up the archery fighting style and increase our hit chance by 2. That's going to increase our DPR against a 14 armor class, which is still the average at CR4, to 19. All day long. The moderate cost and setup reasonable build here is a Warlock, actually. You're going to be going custom lineage with our level 4 Warlock so that you can get your Charisma to an 18 with a free feat, for which we will be taking Telekinetic. This lets us move an enemy 5 feet with a bonus action if they fail their strength save against it. Thus, we would be starting with an 18 Charisma, right, with the feat and the +2 from custom lineage. For our level 4 feat that we get at level 4, we're going to take Crusher, which tells us that if we do bludgeoning damage to an enemy, we can move them 5 feet in any direction so long as they're no more than one size larger than us. But then for our Warlock subclass, we're going to go with Genie here. Still no Hexblade, can you believe it? Genie gives us the fantastic Genie's Wrath feature, letting us add our proficiency bonus in damage once per turn to an attack. And then we also get to choose a Genie kind. And for our Genie kind, we're going to want to pick Tao, since that is going to make that extra damage that we get from Genie's Wrath bludgeoning damage, and thus trigger the Crusher feat. Tao Genie also gives us access to the Spike Growth spell, which, yes, we need at this level. I told you to get used to seeing it. We also want to make sure to grab Eldritch Blast as a cantrip here, and then for our Eldritch invocations that we get, be sure to take Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast. Agonizing Blast lets us add our Charisma modifier to our Eldritch Blast damage, so that's a +4, right? And then Repelling Blast moves an enemy 10 feet away from us when we hit them with Eldritch Blast. For your Pact Boon that we get at Warlock 3, I'm going to go Pact the Chain so that we can have a familiar who can be invisible and take the help action on their turn, giving us advantage on our one attack that we would make against the enemy with Eldritch Blast, right? When we hit them, we would do a D10 +4 for our Charisma, +2 for our proficiency bonus, +6d4 more if and when we push them through the Briar Patch that is Spike Growth. We're moving them 15 feet here, 10 for Repelling Blast and 5 more for Crusher, so 6d4 total damage through Spike Growth. As a bonus action, we're just going to move them 5 feet more through the thorns thanks to Telekinetic, assuming they fail their save. When you account for their save chance here, which is only going to be a 2 on average at this CR, we'd be doing a total of 29 DPR versus that 14 AC and +2 to save. That is awesome and kind of hilarious. And by the way, if you'd like to see a version of this build that goes all the way to level 17, check out the Cheese Grater here. Alright, for the Out There build, the Moon Druid dragging through Spike Growth is still, I think, the best single target damage dealer if you can get your DM to agree on the mechanics. At this level, though, you'd take the Skill Expert feat to give you expertise in athletics for an even better grapple chance. But what if we wanted to do more total damage, but to multiple enemies every round? In that case, I think we can do something similar to that Moon Druid build, but slightly better. For our class, we're going to go 4 levels in Druid, but we would need our race to not be custom lineage or variant human, but actually a flying race, namely an Aarakocra or an Owlin. Fairy isn't going to work here because fairies are small and we're going to be grappling again, and remember, you can only grapple a target if they're no more than one size larger than you. Now, a lot of tables ban flying races, hence the Out There part of this build. You're going to need DM buy-in, but if they're on board with flying races, make sure you get your strength to 16 and that you take athletics proficiency. Again, for our level 4 feat, we're going to take mobile, just like we did for the Moon Druid. And after that, just be sure to grab the Longstrider spell again, and then yes, Spike Growth. And I mean, I don't care about wild shape here. I don't care about equipment. You can't wear medium or heavy armor and fly, so get used to a crappy AC. I don't even care what your druid subclass is, really. You're just grappling an enemy or two and dragging them over the Spike Growth. Since you've definitely got 2 arms for grappling, you could potentially grapple and drag 2 enemies along with you, and with Longstrider and mobile, that's 50 feet of flying speed. 100 feet if you dash, but again, moving at half speed if you're dragging a grappled target, so you're only going over 50 feet, making your damage 50 for each target, 20 d4 of damage, right? The average athletic score of a CR4 enemy actually goes down from CR3, it's only +2, so with our +5, we've got a 62% chance to succeed on our grapple check, meaning that on average, we'd do 31 damage to each grappled enemy for a total of 62 total damage. Way better than that Warlock Cheese Grater if we're talking total damage anyways. So how out there is this? I mean, surely no one would think that you would take damage here if you were flying over the Spike Growth and just dragging an enemy along underneath you through the brambles, right? But there are several things that your DM may have umbrage with here. I mean, You can't fly in medium armor, but you can drag like 2 large rhinos along the ground while you fly above spike growth. It works rules as written, but I can see some DMs being like, yeah, no. And let's not forget that your concentration isn't very good, so you might be dropping spike growth, especially since you've not got a very good AC either. Again, you might not even be able to play a flying race in the first place. Still, if you can make it work, it'll be hard to do more total damage round after round than this build at level 4. Okay, coming down the home stretch at level 5. First up, the I can do this all day bub is going back to Barbarian. Once extra attack is in play, it's hard to outmatch just a straight Barbarian at these lower levels thanks to reckless attack, right? Again, we're not even talking rage. That's an expendable resource, and we're saying you can do this without spending any resources. But even then, go custom lineage or variant human for the free feat. You're going to take Polearm Master at level 1, Great Weapon Master now at level 4, getting that plus 10 to damage at a minus 5 to hit, right? Make sure that your strength score is at a 16, and then every round, even if you don't have rage available, you're making 3 attacks with that halberd or glaive, right? 2 of them are doing a D10, 1 of them's doing a D4 with the blunt end, thanks to Polearm Master, but each of them are adding 3 from your strength and 10 for Great Weapon Master. Altogether, thanks to the advantage that we get from reckless attack, we're going to be doing 37 damage per round all day long. And that is a huge increase from level 4, right? No surprise. Extra attack is really good. Just kidding. I just realized while I was at the dentist that I said that wrong. I didn't talk about subclass. I was assuming we were going Zealot Barbarian and we were going to get a little extra damage from their Divine Fury feature, forgetting that that only applies when we're raging. So in all honesty, the subclass here doesn't really matter that much, at least not for all day long damage. So if you want to go Bear Totem for a little more survivability when you rage, or Ancestral Guardian for like a soft taunt, or heck, Storm Herald, knock yourself out. When it comes to all day long, resource free damage, your Barbarian subclass isn't really going to matter. And in the end, the DPR is actually 32, not 37. Still the best we can do, I think, for all day damage. For our reasonable expenditure of resources and setup build, the Cheese Grater is still leading the pack here. At level 5, our Eldritch Blast starts to fire 2 beams. And remember, Repelling Blast works on every Eldritch Blast beam, meaning we can push 10 feet through spike growth with each blast. What's more, as a level 5 Warlock, we not only get 3rd level spells, but also a 3rd invocation, which would let us take the Grasp of Hadar invocation. Grasp of Hadar works similarly to Repelling Blast, except that it pulls the enemy towards us when we hit them with Eldritch Blast. Here's the trick. According to Xanathar's Guide to Everything, when 2 effects happen simultaneously, in this case a push and a pull with Eldritch Blast, right? The player causing the effect gets to decide in which order they occur. So there's no reason, rules as written, that you couldn't hit an enemy with 1 beam and push them, then pull them with that same beam. Nothing about those invocations indicate that you have to choose between pushing or pulling if you have both of the invocations, right? Only that Repelling Blast can work on every beam and Grasp of Hadar can only work once per turn. So we push and pull with the first beam and then push with the second, grating that cheese. We get advantage on that first beam from our familiar, no advantage on the second, but then again a bonus action telekinetic shove, though challenge rating 5 enemies have an average of 4 on their strength save, so our success chance goes down a bit for that to work. Altogether though, we would be averaging 49 DPR against the average CR5 enemy. Incredible. I will add this though, if you consider the Cheese Grater that I've outlined above to be not all that reasonable, whether because it might not be as easy to get enemies into the perfect range of spike growth, or because your DM won't let it work exactly as I've laid out for whatever reason, I do think the best alternative that really should work all of the time, as long as you've got a use of rage anyways, would be to go Zealot Barbarian route as we've laid it out. If we get to add rage to everything else that we're already doing, we're going to be at a 41 DPR against a 15 AC enemy. And you're not going to get anyone raising their eyebrows at you at the table while you lay waste to your enemies with this build. Unless by their eyebrow raise they just mean, damn. As for the out there build, I still think the Bear Druid dragging through Spike Growth is going to be the best single target damage dealer. And actually, as a level 5 character, you'd want to go Moon Druid 3, Rogue 2. So you could get expertise in athletics from Rogue and then dash as both an action and as a bonus action thanks to Cunning Action from Rogue. With a Long Strider, we wouldn't have mobile anymore, but by using our move speed, dashing, and then dashing, we would be dragging an enemy through 75 feet of Spike Growth and have a really fantastic grapple check to boot. But let me present an alternative to the Aarakocra here for multi-target damage that I think will be more likely to work at just about every table. More likely anyways than flying and dragging 2 large enemies over Spike Growth, I think. And it is going to be to go Bard. That's right. Who knew the highest damage dealing character at level 5 might be a Bard? I mean, I did. And of course you did, certainly you did, I know. I mean, you and me, we're like this, right? Everyone else? No clue. Yeah, the all singing, all dancing crap of the world, that's us. And it's gonna be awesome. For our race, we're gonna take custom lineage. For our free feat, we're gonna want anything that's gonna bump, yes, our strength by 1. I think I would probably go with moderately armored here, as that will bump our strength, but also give us proficiency with medium armor and shields, which most bards don't typically have, helping our AC greatly. Be sure to start, though, with an 18 strength, which we can do thanks to the +2 from custom lineage and +1 from our feat. You're also gonna wanna pick up, yes, proficiency in athletics. Now, as for our bard college, our subclass, are we going Valor? No. Swords, right? No. Seriously? We are going Lore Bard. That's right. We're going to be the nerdiest damage dealer of all time, because Lore Bards get the wonderful cutting words feature, and this tells us that we can use our bardic inspiration, that thing we usually use to inspire our allies, as a reaction to reduce the attack roll, damage roll, or yes, ability check of an enemy within 60 feet of us. And since, in case you hadn't guessed yet, we'll be grappling, and that means the enemy is going to be making an ability check to avoid being grappled. This is going to increase our grapple check tremendously. As a level 5 bard, we'll get to subtract a d8 from the enemy's chance to avoid our grapple, right? Very nice. Now, bards get expertise at level 3, so be sure and make athletics one of your choices, doubling our proficiency bonus for our athletics checks. For our level 4 feat, we're going to be increasing our strength to 20, so just bump strength, right? That's awesome, giving us at level 5, with expertise in athletics, a +11 to our athletics checks, and the potential to reduce the enemy's check too. It's an almost guaranteed grapple. It's so good. Finally, as far as spells go, just make sure to grab, no, not Spike Growth, bards don't even get Spike Growth, Cloud of Daggers. An underappreciated spell, I think. You cast it as an action, it requires concentration, and for 1 minute it fills a 5-foot cube with spinning daggers that deal damage to an enemy once on a turn, either when they start their turn in the area or when they are moved into the area on a turn. If you have questions about how this works and whether or not it works if an enemy is moved into the area, just look up the Sage Advice Compendium and search for the word Moonbeam to find the question and answer that deals with this. So, our tactic in combat is pretty simple. On round 1, we cast Cloud of Daggers as a 3rd level spell, so it does 6d4 damage every time it does damage. No save against it, doesn't make any checks against armor classes, it just does 6d4 damage. Cast it preferably on top of an enemy so that they take some damage on their turn, right? On round 2, we grapple an enemy, we use cutting words if they get a lucky roll, and we drag them into Cloud of Daggers. But instead of attacking or casting another spell with our action, we simply ready our action to use our movement on like the next creature's turn. Remember, Cloud of Daggers can do damage once on a turn, whether it's on our turn or someone else's. It's not limited to times per round, right? And when we ready our action, we simply state what we're going to do. That can be take an action or use our movement when a certain trigger happens. Something like as soon as 6 seconds go by, or as soon as the next creature does anything, or whatever. So for us, we'll simply be moving the grappled enemy out of Cloud of Daggers and then back in with our readied action as a reaction, right? Then, on the enemy's turn, they're going to take damage just for starting their turn in the area of the spell's effect. So yeah, we're triple dipping here, doing Cloud of Daggers damage to the enemy 3 times over the course of a round. Now, it gets even better when you consider that we could do this with 2 targets. We have 2 hands, after all. Yes, it would take a lot longer for us to set up since grappling will require our action, but you could put 2 enemies into the area of effect of Cloud of Daggers even though it's only a 5-foot cube. Keep in mind that the area of effect of the spell doesn't have to snap to the grid, right? Assuming that you're playing on a grid. You could place it like right between 2 5-foot squares so that it is affecting half of one square and half of the other. And the rules state that so long as an area of effect covers at least half of a square and a creature is touching that square, then they are affected by the area of effect thing, right? Right. So, the only thing that makes this build out there is, well, 1, the setup required, I suppose, especially if you're trying to do it to 2 targets. But 2, the fact that a lot of you, like I showed with the poll before, felt that forcing a grappled enemy into the Cloud of Daggers area would cause you to take damage as well, regardless of the fact that, rules as written, you and your grappled target don't occupy the same space. And, I mean, I get it. If you've got someone in a headlock or something, it might be tough to imagine getting them into a cloud of spinning daggers without it like cutting up your arm or something, right? On the other hand, I can totally see like putting their arm behind their back, grabbing their head and like shoving them into the cloud while you stand just outside, or heck, taking 2 targets in a headlock and kind of like pivoting or swinging them through the cloud's area while you just stand outside. You've got a 20 strength, beefiest bard ever. It could happen. Anyways, if and when it did, with our grapple check and the enemy's bonus reduced to 0 thanks to cutting words, we've got almost a 90% chance to successfully grapple. And when you apply the percent chance to the 18d4 that each enemy would take over the course of an entire round, we're talking an average of 80 total damage to 2 targets. And that's so awesome. By the way, if you want to see a more detailed version of this same concept, similar, some slight differences, check out what I consider to be my most underrated video of all time, the Bardic Brawler. All right, so do we have any final thoughts to share here? I mean, first of all, I can't believe I just did 15 builds in under an hour. Where is Colby and what have you done with him? I hope you guys enjoyed it. I need a nap. It took me like twice as long to write the script for this one as my usual videos, but hey, if it performs well, maybe I will do something like it again. So let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more stuff like this. I could keep doing sustained DPR builds, but there's no way I'm doing like levels 6 to 10 in a single video. I might have to go down to like just 2 or 3 builds or levels as the options get increasingly more complicated. Or maybe you'd rather see like the best burst damage potential for each level, or even the most survivable a character could be, something like that. Let me know in the comments. Also in the comments, let me know if you think I missed something. This is the best that I could come up with after brainstorming about it for 3 days straight, but I'm sure there's something out there that I'm not really thinking about. So feel free to share with me your idea that might beat something else that I talked about. Other than that, yeah, I mean, what stands out here? Sharpshooter, crossbow expert, or great weapon master and polearm master are clear winners. No big surprise. But also, yeah, Spike Growth and even Cloud of Daggers are a little bit OP if you can successfully move enemies into and through them, right? Not a huge surprise either if you follow the D&D Optimizer community. I loved little gems like finding a Rogue 3 to be kind of better at I can do this all day than anything else I could come up with at the time. Other than that, no big surprise that a Barbarian is just super solid through the first 5 levels of the game anyways at like sustained damage dealing. The problem, of course, with Barbarians being that after level 5, they don't really scale at all, so you're always looking to multi-class, which I don't mind. Maybe my favorite discovery was just like the best DPR I could muster without spending any resources and without needing any setup. I get a lot of requests from people for those kinds of builds, and I've really never done one just because they seem a little boring to me, honestly. But it was fun to discover like a baseline to judge future builds off of. Maybe I'll do a dedicated build in the near future to like the highest damage I can do this all day build, so that at least we can compare it to other builds at the levels 6, 9, 13, and 17 damage reports and like see where it stacks up. Regardless, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. I also hope you know how much I love you. Thank you guys for everything that you do for me, for the channel. I hope you have a great day and a fantastic week, and if you don't, please, please don't give up. You got this. I hope you have a great day and a fantastic week, and I hope I see you again very, very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. Trying something new today. See how it goes. Lost my lucky ball and chain, and now she's 4 years gone. She's 5 feet tall and sick of me, and all my rattling on. She threw away her baby doll. I held on to my pride, but I was young and foolish then. I feel old and foolish now. Bum, ba, bum, bum, bum. Confidentially, she never called me baby doll. Confidentially, I never had much pride. But now I rock a bar stool and I drink for two. Just pondering this time bomb in my mind. Oh, any other They Might Be Giants fans out there? Such a great band. Their music is so weird and so good. I can't help but love it. Best album's gotta be Flood, right? I mean, to be fair, I'm not really that familiar with any of their other albums, but that one is so good that how could anything compete? Alright. Have you ever wondered what would be the most sustained damage that you could possibly do with a character? Okay, try that out. Start with that over. Have you ever wondered what would be the most... Wow, third time's a charm. Okay, fine. Say, as long as you're conscious and like not controlled, right? And not like controlled by some force outside of... Just leave it as long as you're conscious. Say this first, actually. So again, you're going to be doing 11. You know what? No, a barbarian would do more, wouldn't they? Because they get advantage. Hold, please. Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, barbarians would be great, but they do have setup. They do spend resources. So although reckless attack doesn't. What if I just did? Gosh dang it. Too many options. Ugh. Now you get to see into what my life has been like for the last 3 days. Constantly second guessing myself or realizing that I maybe didn't consider something. Stop. Would it? If we add 2 here and oops, make that 6. Oh, yeah, it would. I was right. Who knew? Once again, I feel like I need to look at this. What if we went barb plus 5? I'm sure I calculated the 3. Well, with advantage, if we reduce that because we don't rage. Phew, good. Okay. I forgot something there. I have to add plus 2. Okay, so start that over. The divine, what's it called?